Kate and her husband, John, enter a hospital because she is about to give birth. She is quickly taken on a wheelchair to get medical attention, while John stays back to complete her admission paperwork. Shortly after, Kate begins to bleed heavily. She regains consciousness in an operating room, surrounded by medical personnel, but John is not there yet. Feeling confused and scared, she is then informed by a nurse that her baby has died. Overwhelmed by disbelief, Kate sees John enter the room, who begins to record the birth as if everything were normal. The nurse then hands her the deceased infant. In a state of shock and screaming, Kate suddenly awakens in her bed. She gets up, goes to the bathroom, and notices a scar on her abdomen, after which she takes some medication. The following day, Kate has a session with her psychotherapist, Dr. Browning, who suggests that experiencing nightmares is a typical reaction to the traumatic event of losing a baby. Kate ponders whether her nightmare was tied to the loss or related to her apprehensions about an upcoming adoption, questioning her readiness for it. In the therapy session, she confides in Dr. Browning about her urge to buy alcohol, but she didn't act on it. Dr. Browning emphasizes the significance of her restraint from alcohol and advises her on the adoption matter, stating that the decision to proceed is hers. Subsequently, Kate leaves to collect her deaf daughter, Max, from school, reflecting on her circumstances. While driving Max home, Kate is distracted and nearly causes a car accident. Later, she plays the piano and composes music but gets annoyed by a noise outside. She discovers Max bouncing a basketball against the wall and tells her to stop, and Max apologizes. When John returns with their son, Daniel, the three of them play with the basketball. That night, while putting Max to bed, Max asks Kate to read a story about the child that died. Max then asks if she will have a new sister. Before sleeping, Kate takes another pill. In bed, Kate and John discuss the adoption, deciding to proceed with it. They later visit an orphanage, where Sister Abigail greets them and suggests they explore. Kate watches the girls on the first floor while John goes upstairs and finds a girl, Esther, painting. He listens to her story about the painting, and then Kate and Abigail join them. Esther shares that people usually don't talk to her because she's different. Kate and John like Esther and discuss adopting her with Sister Abigail. Abigail reveals Esther's Russian origin and that her previous American caregivers died in a house fire. Despite this tragic background, Abigail believes Esther is a wonderful child, a sentiment Kate agrees with. 3 weeks later, they officially adopt Esther and bid farewell to Abigail at the orphanage. In the car, Kate begins teaching Esther sign language. Upon arriving home, Max is thrilled to meet her new sister. Esther immediately introduces herself, asking Kate about Max's hearing ability. Kate explains that Max can hear enough to lip read effectively. Inside the house, they are greeted by Grandma Barbara and Daniel. That evening, everyone presents welcome gifts to Esther, except Daniel, who displays jealousy, particularly after Esther gives John a thank you hug. Afterward, Daniel sneaks off to the treehouse with his friends to look at inappropriate magazines. Meanwhile, Esther and Max play in the snow. Inside, Kate talks with Barbara about Max and her plans to resume teaching once Esther is settled in the family, with Barbara appearing to disapprove of Kate's decisions. As a storm approaches that night, Kate gets ready for bed. Esther, unable to sleep, goes to Max's room. Meanwhile, John and Kate are in bed when they are interrupted by a knock on the door from the girls, asking to sleep in their bed because of the storm. Esther expresses a wish to sleep next to John. The following morning, as the family prepares for school, Esther descends the stairs in a fancy dress, eliciting laughter from the other children. Kate checks with Esther to confirm she is comfortable wearing the dress to school, and Esther asserts her comfort, stating there's nothing wrong with being different. Kate agrees to let her wear the dress. At school, Esther is greeted by her teacher but is mocked by a classmate. Later, Max and Esther are found playing on a frozen lake, prompting Kate to run outside and yell that they shouldn't be there. In a separate incident, Daniel, playing with a paintball gun, accidentally shoots a bird and becomes visibly upset. Esther and Max approach, and Esther, noticing the bird's suffering, suggests using a rock to end its pain. When Daniel hesitates, Esther takes the initiative and does it herself. Meanwhile, Esther is bathing, and Kate, while putting laundry in Esther's room, discovers an old Bible in a drawer. Kate examines the Bible and finds a photograph of a man inside, unaware that Esther is observing her from the bathroom. At school, Daniel faces teasing from his peers because of Esther, leading him to knock her books from her hands. As Esther tries to pick them up, a classmate grabs her Bible. During the struggle, the Bible drops, and when Esther retrieves it, the girl pulls at Esther's choker and mockingly calls her doggy, causing Esther to scream. Later, while Kate is teaching Esther piano, she inquires about the school incident, but Esther is reluctant to discuss it. Kate presents Esther with a scrapbook she started, leading to a conversation about the baby Kate lost. She shares the story and shows Esther the rose garden where the baby's ashes were scattered. After dinner, assuming the children are asleep, Kate and John are intimate in the kitchen, but Esther unexpectedly shows up. The next morning, Kate addresses the incident with Esther, who, while painting, nonchalantly acknowledges it and uses explicit language. Kate discusses this with John, suggesting therapy for Esther, but John sees it as an overreaction for just one swear word. Later, at a park, while the girls are on the swings, a neighbor flirts with John. Esther notices her school bully at the playground and watches both the bully and John's interaction with the neighbor. The bully, intimidated by Esther, cautiously plays in the castle. As she goes down the slide, Esther pushes her, causing a leg injury witnessed by Max. At dinner that night, John questions Esther about the incident, with Max confirming the bully's fall was an accident. Before eating, Esther leads a prayer, with Max following along, showing her grasp of sign language, even surpassing Daniel's. Daniel becomes antagonistic towards Esther, calling her names until their parents intervene. Daniel, upset and swearing, storms off. John responds by installing a lock on his treehouse as punishment. Later, while shopping with the girls, Kate receives a call from Sister Abigail. Esther declines to speak with her, so Kate continues the conversation. She moves aside to discuss Esther's troubling behavior with Sister Abigail, unaware that Max is lip-reading and silently relaying the conversation to Esther. That evening, Esther impressively plays the piano, catching Kate off guard. When Kate inquires why Esther hid her musical skills, Esther claims it was to benefit Kate. Later, Kate and John have a heated argument about Esther, which Esther overhears with a sense of satisfaction. Sister Abigail visits their home to express concerns about Esther, suggesting she might have behavioral issues and mentioning past incidents of aggression. Esther listens in and then convinces Max to assist her in preventing Sister Abigail from taking her away. While Kate begins to suspect something is amiss with Esther, John thinks it's an overreaction. However, he eventually consents to Kate's suggestion of therapy for Esther. In the meantime, Esther tricks Max into retrieving the keys for the treehouse. However, she uses them to access John's safe and remove a gun. She empties the bullets, leaving one inside, and then points the gun at Max, terrifying her. After Sister Abigail leaves the house, Esther takes Max to a bridge, claiming they will scare her to ensure she never returns. As Abigail's car nears, Esther pushes Max into the street, causing Abigail to swerve and crash her car. While Abigail is checking on a crying Max, Esther strikes her with a hammer. Esther then coerces Max into helping drag Abigail off the road. When they realize Abigail is still alive, Esther delivers the fatal blow with the hammer. The girls hide Esther's blood-stained clothes and the hammer in the treehouse, with Esther threatening Max into silence by claiming she could be jailed for complicity. Esther then professes her love for Max. Daniel witnesses them descending from the treehouse, but Esther also spots him. That night, she enters his room with a scalpel, intimidating him into silence, which causes him to wet himself. John and Kate bring Esther to see Dr. Browning, who, after speaking with them and observing Esther, concludes that Kate, not Esther, is the one with issues, suggesting Kate's feelings of inadequacy as a mother are being projected onto Esther. John finds this analysis plausible. Returning home, Kate receives a call from the orphanage informing her that Sister Abigail hasn't been seen since the day before. The police discover her body at the location Esther and Max left her, with an officer informing Kate and John that there are no leads on the case. In her room, Esther toggles her aquarium light, revealing a macabre painting of her new family and home. Kate, growing suspicious, researches troubled children online and presents her findings to John, who remains skeptical. Frustrated, Kate decides to stop seeing Dr. Browning and resolves to reach out to the Russian orphanage for answers about Esther's past. Her inquiry reveals that there are no records of Esther before she came to the United States. The following morning, John attempts to wake Esther for a dentist appointment, but she resists, prompting him to promise a reschedule. They end up spending the day painting, during which Esther expresses to John her belief that Kate dislikes her. Concurrently, Kate, while driving the other children to school, probes them about Esther, but they conceal any negative behavior. Later, Esther presents Kate with a bouquet of roses picked from where her daughter's ashes were scattered, distressing Kate. When she reacts physically, John intervenes, blaming himself. That night, Esther deliberately injures herself in the garage. In bed, she summons John, complaining of arm pain, leading to the discovery of her broken arm. After a hospital visit, John is comforting Esther in their bed when Kate enters. He confronts Kate about the injury, but she insists she didn't cause it. Overwhelmed, Kate purchases wine and consumes some before discarding the remainder, signaling her distress. The next morning, as Kate drives the kids to school, Daniel's bag rips while exiting the car. While Kate helps him, Esther shifts the car into drive with Max still inside. Kate chases the car until it stops in the snow. That evening, Dr. Browning visits their home, and Kate insists that Esther was behind the car incident, believing Max is protecting her. John confronts Kate with a second bottle of wine Esther discovered, supporting doubts about Kate's reliability. Dr. Browning suggests a rehab center for Kate, but she defends her actions regarding the wine, which is met with skepticism. John accuses Kate of manipulation, ultimatuming her to enter rehab within a week or face separation and loss of her children. Concurrently, Esther threatens Max with violence if she reveals the truth. Later, Max confides in Daniel about Sister Abigail's incident, leading Daniel to plan retrieving evidence from the treehouse, unbeknownst to Esther, who overhears them. During the night, Kate sneaks into Max's room, where Esther confronts her with Kate's diary she has been reading, trying to provoke her, but Kate remains composed. Frustrated with the lack of information from the orphanage, Kate investigates further, finding Esther's Bible concealed in a stuffed toy, which contains photographs of men and a reference to the Sarn Institute. Intrigued, Kate turns to the internet to research this clue. Kate discovers through a phone call that the Sarn Institute is a mental hospital, not an orphanage. Meanwhile, Daniel attempts to retrieve evidence from the treehouse, but Esther follows him, dousing the evidence and then Daniel with fuel before setting it alight. She traps him inside the flaming treehouse. Daniel escapes onto the roof, screaming for help, but falls to the ground, observed by Esther. Kate, noticing the fire, rushes outside as Esther prepares to strike Daniel with a rock. Max intervenes, pushing Esther away, and Kate arrives in time to prevent further harm. Daniel survives the ordeal but is hospitalized with a severe neck injury, his memory of the event uncertain, causing Esther visible concern. In the hospital, Kate shares with John the disturbing truths about Esther, but he remains skeptical. During their dispute, Esther attempts to suffocate Daniel with a pillow in his hospital room. Max, realizing the danger, rushes to alert her parents. The medical team intervenes, saving Daniel. An enraged Kate confronts Esther, resulting in a physical altercation. After the altercation, orderlies restrain Kate and administer sedation, causing her to miss a crucial phone call. Upon awakening, Kate's immediate concern is for Daniel, and she pleads with John to keep Esther away from Max. She then spends the night in the hospital for observation. At home, Max removes her hearing aid before bed, and after her father tucks her in, Esther enters her room and secretly takes the hearing aid. John, overwhelmed by the events, drinks heavily in the living room. Esther, dressed inappropriately for her perceived age, approaches John and attempts to kiss him, leading to his shocked rejection. He clarifies that his love is for Kate, not her, and instructs Esther to go to her room. Defiant, Esther resists being treated as a child, prompting John to decide to contact the orphanage about her behavior. Distraught, Esther retreats to her room and weeps. Meanwhile, Kate receives a call from a doctor at the Sarn Institute, who urgently informs her of Esther's true nature. He reveals that Esther is not a child but an adult woman with a hormonal disorder that makes her appear young. He describes her as a highly dangerous individual, known for her violence at the hospital, with restraint scars on her hands and neck, urging Kate to secure her family's safety and alert the authorities. The doctor informs Kate that Esther is responsible for at least 7 deaths. As Kate hurries home, she's baffled by how Esther deceived them. Meanwhile, Esther, in a fit of rage, destroys her room and removes the makeup disguising her adult appearance. John investigates the commotion and discovers her alarming artwork. While Kate, driving home, tries to reach John, the house loses power, preventing the call from connecting. She then contacts the police. Armed with a flashlight, John searches the house and is ambushed and repeatedly stabbed by Esther, resulting in his death. Max witnesses the murder and becomes Esther's next target. In her haste, Kate crashes into the house and rushes inside. After finding John's body, she senses Max is in danger and searches for her, eventually getting shot by Esther in the bathroom. Kate retreats to her bedroom, evading Esther by hiding. Outside, Max conceals herself in the garden while Esther hunts for her. Kate, spotting Esther from a shattered glass roof, crashes through it, landing on Esther. Max then awakens Kate, indicating they have survived the ordeal. Kate grabs the gun and carries Max, leaving Esther behind as they head into the forest. The police arrive and search the house, but Esther is gone. Then, Esther, armed with a knife, chases after Kate and Max. They end up on a frozen lake, where a fierce struggle ensues between Kate and Esther. Max, seizing the opportunity, uses the gun to shoot, breaking the ice, causing Kate and Esther to fall into the water. Under the ice, Kate and Esther grapple intensely until Kate overpowers Esther. Trying to escape the icy water, Kate is nearly out when Esther, pleading for her life, grabs her. However, Kate forcefully kicks Esther back into the lake, ensuring her escape. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.